What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 9 to 5 Mac Overtime. We took a little hiatus last week for a good reason. As you know, Jeff is letting us know why. We got our hands on our Vision Pro, and we thought we needed the weekend to really figure out what was going on with this thing.
Where's my mic?
So welcome.
Oh, there we go.
There it is. So welcome, everybody. I'm Fernando, and then you guys can clearly see Jeff over there doing his thing.
Yeah, this is VR Jeff. How's it going, everybody?
I lost him to the Vision OS world. I'm not going to say the metaverse, but okay. Vision OS world. But yeah, man, I mean, let's jump right into this thing. We got a lot of thoughts, a lot of positive, maybe some negative, but just give me your first impressions that Friday when you got it. What's the first thing you did on it? Talk to me.
First thing I did, well, first of all, I was just impressed by the unboxing experience. I mean, I shouldn't have been surprised, but it was pretty awesome. The heft of it, the materials, the build, we'll talk about that as well. It's just an impressive looking device. It feels like something pulled out of the future.
Really does.
So yeah, that was what impressed me the most. The first thing I tried was like a spatial video of my cat, and that was pretty cool too. And then I did a whole bunch of other stuff, downloaded a million gazillion apps. It felt like the iPhone all over again, like just going out and just downloading everything, even if it's something that looks kind of lame. Yeah, but you still want to try it out just to see how it is. So yeah, what about you?
No, same thing, man. I was just wowed in general. I actually decided to do the demo in the store, and the demo alone wowed me. So by the time I took it home, I was like, well, I'm ready to go. I got it on Friday. I had the house to myself. So the first thing I did was turn on NBA Game Time. My Miami Heat were playing. And then that's when I was like, whoa, this thing is crazy. We had the NBA dashboard up. I had the maybe 200-inch TV. And I have a tweet that I posted kind of comparing it because I have a 100-inch projector at home, and it made my 100-inch projector look tiny.
Yeah, I do too.
Absolutely tiny.
And that's the same thing. Yeah.
So just overall, very, very impressed with the tech, and it just felt like you said, like we're in the future. We got Tony Stark over here just throwing around Windows and applications like it's nothing.
Yeah, that's kind of how that was my first impression. Thinking about this is real. We're actually doing we're doing all this, and I did try in front of some friends, try to exaggerate like I was doing more than it actually could do. I was like watch out. But yeah, I mean, but it's exactly I'm doing all sorts of things. They're like, you can do that? I'm like, nah, I'm just kidding. But that's it does feel futuristic for sure. It feels like something from Minority Report or something where you're interacting with stuff for real, and it's cool, man. It's really cool.
And you're constantly every single day that I've used it, it's been a week now, I'm finding something new, right? Something new that's gonna impress me and wow me. And I'm like I remember on Saturday I was telling you I didn't know because Apple hasn't promoted this or said anything about it. You can interact physically input wise with your windows. And I remember I just grabbed Safari and pulled it towards me, and it diagonally basically it almost looked like a canvas that wanted to be interacted with. So I was like, oh, let me just put my finger on here, and then all of a sudden I was swiping through Safari with my finger, and I was like,
yeah,
this feels like now I have 13 iPads surrounding me.
Yeah,
which is cool. So just overall impressed with the hardware and software.
Yeah, I mean it is really cool. And to your point, that being able, which is something Apple hasn't advertised at all, but being able to actually interact with stuff the DJ app is one of those experiences where you're surrounded, you're fully immersed, a couple of turntables there. You can actually mix and hit buttons and do all sorts. You can actually lift the the needle for the record player and just put it anywhere on the record. It's crazy. It's awesome. Yeah. So definitely try that out if you haven't. DJ. So there's a lot of experiences like that though. And that's what we kind of want to talk about today. We're going to go through 3 different sections here. First of all, we're going to talk about the top 5 things we like about the Vision Pro. Then we're going to talk about 5 things that we changed our mind about after using it.
Both good and bad.
Yeah, both good and bad. And then finally, we're going to talk about 5 things that need to be improved.
Yeah.
AKA the worst features. And then,
yeah, we're being nice.
And then finally, Fernando's going to tell us if he's keeping it or not.
So stay tuned, everybody. Or skip to the end if you want to find out. No, but yeah, no, I mean, the first thing that we kind of already spoke about it a little bit. It's just how pristine the hardware is, man. I mean, I expected nothing less from Apple, especially at this price point. Apple knows how to build good quality things. I mean, Look at stuff like the iPhone, the iPad was so ahead of its time in 2018 with that redesign. So just the build quality, the material choices, things even down to with the Solo knit band, how to tighten it. Just that little turn wheel is just magical. I mean, they should make belts out of that for everyday life. That's what I was thinking about. I mean, the hardware just was incredible.
Yeah, it's like the build quality, the material. Like I think in my review that is still in the works, by the way, but I spoke about material design. Like if you're someone who's into textiles and material design, you want to work at Apple because like there's no other company like putting stuff out like this. Period. Not only just because they have the resources, but they also have the know-how and they have a lot of different just skilled people that work there and are able to put together things like this. You spoke about the Solo knit band, and it's one of my favorite things about this device. Um, Obviously, people argue about whether you should use the dual loop or the Solo knit. I still am using the Solo knit. I think it looks great. It's pretty comfortable. It's not terrible, but this little dial right here, as you adjust this little guy, it actually changes the tension. And this isn't new,
Mm,
like this has been done before, but it changes the tension of this little orange thread
yeah,
here that goes through. So it's not just for looks, like the orange is there just to like look different, but it actually is functional. And as you
which is
turn it,
awesome.
you can feel it get tighter or looser depending on which way you turn it. And right now it's fully like fully tight.
Untensed.
Yeah,
Oh, it's tight. Okay,
untense.
it's fully
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
tensioned.
But then you turn it like this, and then it reduces the tension of that, and then you can actually. It's just cool. It's just really well designed. Not to mention the little straps and the little notches that go click right in
Hmm.
place. I mean, it's typical Apple attention to detail all the way through.
No, absolutely. And like you said, I mean, a lot of people have said that the dual loop is the way to go, especially for long sessions. And I probably agree for the most part, but I've been very happy with the Solo knit band. Every obviously your mileage is going to vary depending on your head shape and size and things like that. But I've been wearing mine for 3, 4 hours at a time, no issues whatsoever. I really like the. People are saying, "Oh, you're just wearing it for aesthetic purposes." Maybe,
Yeah,
but
yeah, pretty much.
maybe. But for the most part, I'm comfortable, and I'm never like, oh my god, my neck hurts, or like, oh my goodness, like I'm getting a headache, or it's too tight on my face. I really like the size and fit of it, which is awesome.
Yeah, and then the light seal, like how everything attaches magnetically. That's always.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just nice. It's just like
and it's just snug.
yeah, it's
It's just
snug.
satisfying.
Yeah, you get this nice satisfying click.
Do
Clicks
you have
into
AirPods
place.
Max or no?
I do not. I used to. I do not.
Okay,
But it reminds me of that, right?
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah,
Like
a
the ear
lot of
cups.
things. A lot of things about this thing remind me of all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
different Apple stuff. Like, and
Yeah,
it's like, oh, you kind of see all this culmination. It's like a culmination of everything in the last 20 years
yeah,
that
that Apple's
Apple's
been
been
working
working
on,
on. Yeah,
and they built it into this beautiful little product. But I mean, in terms of what else we liked, one of the standout features for me that went super underrated or under the radar because you don't really think of it is the speakers.
for
The
sure.
built-in speakers on the straps is unreal. Like it makes you think like you have AirPods Pro in. Spatial awareness, the loudness, everything. And then also the ambient noise where as long as you're under like 60, 65%, the people next to you can't hear you. But you
Oh,
think you're
really?
like in a loud environment. At least in my day-to-day use. Like my wife can't hear it, my daughter can't really hear it. So I mean, I don't know if you have a different experience.
I need to test that out because that was something I was wondering about.
Mm,
But yeah, I need to test that out because that's
yeah. The noise bleed is impressive.
yeah. I've been confused because I thought like I thought I had AirPods in, or I had the AirPods in, but I also had this on, and the audio is actually going through the Vision Pro, but I thought it was coming through the AirPods because it was just that clear. Um, so it was impressed. And another thing, like with the audio, and we can touch on this a little bit later, but like obviously spatial audio, music, but FaceTime, like it
Hmm.
is crazy how you can hear the voices of the different people on the call
Yeah.
come from different directions, whether you turn your head, and then as you move or move them closer to you or further away, that's changes it.
Hmm.
And also the environment, based on the
Yeah.
environment you're in, if you're fully immersed, it changes then.
It's a
So it's
game
just
changer.
crazy. It's crazy, right?
No, they've really figured out like how to make this feel realistic. And like you said, when you go into the immersive aspect of it, once you turn on the immersive environments, you start to hear the little creeks running and the birds chirping and like rocks falling off the mountain. And like you said, if have you sneezed or shouted in these environments by
I've
chance?
been afraid to sneeze wearing this thing, man. Like I've
That's
been,
true. The thing that falls right off your head. But there somehow Apple figured out to make an echo. There's an echo in the environment that sounds like it's far away, that sounds realistic. And then same thing like you were mentioning with FaceTime. If like we were FaceTiming with a group of 4 people, I believe.
Mhm.
So like you said, if you push them farther away, they sound farther, closer, they sound clearer. But then even when you look at each individual person because of the eye tracking, each individual person gets a different sound as well as what they see is a little bit different. Like I remember I was
Yeah,
looking at you and you saw my hand, but chance I wasn't looking at him. He didn't see my hand, which
yeah,
is, you know, the little
crazy.
things that you don't really need to do, but Apple did it to make you feel like it's real, which
Yeah,
is unbelievable.
yeah. And then you have the eye tracking, which
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the things I was most skeptical about, the eye tracking and hand gestures, because I was thinking like how good, because we've never seen anything like this. At least I
No,
haven't. I've never seen anything like it.
no.
Um, and I was just wondering how accurate is this going to be? Is this going to be this thing where it works, but it you know it only works like
Yeah,
75% of the time?
yeah.
But no, this thing works really well. Like I've been pretty shocked at how well it works. Even with stuff far away, I'm able to just look at it, tap, and it submits that gesture. So
That was the
impressed.
I remember we spoke about having an aha moment, you know, back with the iPhone. That to me was the aha moment. It was how confident you can be looking at whatever you want to look at and using your eyes as, you know, the your mouse or your cursor. And even to the point you were mentioning things that were far away, things that are overlapping. So if I have like an app that's far away and then another app peeking from behind it, I can look through that app in front and look to the one behind because it knows that I want that app and then click on whatever I want to click on with the hand gestures. So the eye tracking, especially if you're using Vision OS applications, 99.9% accurate. You can
Yeah.
definitely, with confidence, do what you need to do. And then even with the iPad OS version of apps, you know, it's still 95% or higher. So overall, the eye tracking is definitely the aha wow moment of like, wow, this feels like magic, which is cool.
Yeah, I agree. With that being said, though, it's also, in my opinion, one of the weak spots, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Because, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've experienced this. I'm actually going to add this because I just thought about it. But,
Put it in there.
like, have you found yourself accidentally like grabbing a window or moving a window when you didn't mean to? Because that's happened to
Yeah,
me quite a bit. Like, and
especially with the
I
keyboard. Have you done with the keyboard?
Oh, the keyboard is, well, that's on our list of terribleness
Yeah,
right there for sure. But
yeah.
I think it's not the system. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
more of the person. Like I think it's
Yeah,
my fault because you have to train. We're basically like retraining ourselves as to how to use a computer because this is
yeah.
not like we don't look at things and feel like if we click on our Mac that only the thing we're looking at is going to open,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
we're that's not the way we've been using computers for years. We've never used them this way.
We've been trained to use computers as efficiently as possible. Like we have our hotkeys, you know, we're doing one thing on one monitor, but we're actually looking at another monitor. So there is a little bit of a learning curve where you have to almost slow down a little bit,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Right.
Be a little bit more intentional about what you're looking at, and then it's not like a slow thing. So if people are thinking it's a very slow thing, it's not. You just got to take like an extra quarter second to just hold on to what you're looking at, click it, and then move on to your next task or whatever the case may be. But that was a little bit of a learning curve that I'm now starting to pick up, which I
Yeah,
think is good.
exactly. Because
Yeah.
I've downgraded and upgraded and downgraded and upgraded and downgraded and upgraded like 10 times already. So, the little thing you have to go through to, set up your eye tracking. I've been through
Yeah.
that more times than I like to admit. And I've got it down now. And I can be like, bam, 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 bam. I'm flying through that thing now.
Yeah.
But the point is that it's a serial input, right? It's not like you can do things in parallel with this system.
Yeah.
So it kind of does like to a degree slow you down a little bit because it's literally you can't get to step three without first going through one, two, three, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like you can't jump ahead. You can't. There's no shortcuts, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um,
It's like you said, it's
but
not a limitation of the system. It's just it is what it is. Because when you're using your eyes to track something and being your point and click mouse, quote unquote, that's just how it's going to be. It's
yeah,
not going to know unless we're implanted with something that's reading our mind in the next 10 years, which doesn't sound that crazy nowadays, but
yeah,
we'll get there maybe. But yeah, no, the eye tracking definitely. If you have the ability to go test it out and go to an Apple store and demo this, go demo it, so you can at least get an idea of what we're talking about because it is magic, and it's very very cool.
Yeah, I think definitely demo it. I don't think most people should buy this device. Like
Mm-mm.
that's kind of my
And we'll touch on that in
my
a little bit too,
yeah.
because it's true.
But I think most people should try it. Like I think
Yeah.
anyone that's interested in tech, you should definitely try it because this is where things may be going in the very near
Hmm.
future. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of times that I went to an Apple store to test out the original iPhone.
Oh really? Yeah.
Oh yeah, with the OG YouTube app, I went there probably like twice a month to the mall just to go play with the iPhone because I was like, this is the future. So who
Yeah,
knows? Maybe Vision OS will be the future.
for sure. And then there's like the spatial awareness, like
Hmm.
windows. Like you put a window right in front of me, and I
Hmm.
put another window here. I get up, I leave, I come
Yeah.
back. The windows are exactly where they were when I
Hmm.
left.
Yeah, even down to like where you left the cursor, or where
Yeah,
your eye tracking was. Like today, I told you earlier, I was booking a flight. I wanted to do something very practical, right? I wanted to book a flight because we're going on vacation like April or May, and I wanted to do something that I would do on my laptop, right? Transfer points from my credit card, move it to the airlines, and in the middle of it, I had to go to the bathroom, and then I went downstairs to get some water, and literally came back upstairs. All the four windows were still open. Everything was exactly where I left it, and I was just like, wow, this is this is crazy, you know?
yeah,
And it's the spatial awareness is just incredible. Not even being able to stay where it is, but being able to also like when you throw maybe what this is like on a person by person use case, but when I would throw quote unquote throw a window back, it'll stop at where the wall is. Like it knows like not to go through the wall, which is crazy. You know, things like that.
yeah. It's impressive. One thing though that I did notice,
Hmm.
that's kind of weird, and I don't know if there's a way to fix this, but like, so I'll have like a huge Safari window right
Yeah,
here, right, and then I'll go to the kitchen, which is a few rooms over, and if I put a window in the kitchen, right, but then if I
yeah,
look, I can see the Safari window, like
yeah.
in
Like a little transparent, a little farther away.
yeah,
Like it knows you're
yeah.
far
It's like
away.
yeah, it knows I'm far away, but it's like I can see through all my walls, which is
Yeah,
weird. You would think I don't know how you would even solve that, like with some
yeah.
sort of a yeah. I don't know. It's
There's
interesting.
a what is that called? It's like object occlusion or something. I think there's
Occlusion,
like a
yeah,
yeah, there's like a term for it. And I remember I saw a video that basically Vision OS still has a little bit of a ways to go for that
for
piece, but
sure.
they were saying how like obviously it's going to happen because in 2019 they were showing off how the lidar scanner was going to help with the iPad, and they were showing demos of people walking through things or walking around them. So it's just a matter of time before Apple kind of through firmware updates and software updates to kind of get that down. It's just they just got to get this in more people's hands and have more environments and have just more data at the end of the day to collect for us, I think.
Yeah, that I
Yeah,
just thought it was weird. It's like
it's
funny
funny.
because, and I could actually control it too, like which is
Yeah.
like I'm all the way in another in the kitchen, and
And you could like
yeah,
pull it towards. So like, let's say you want to stay in your kitchen, you can just grab it and bring it towards you,
yeah,
which is funny.
yeah, yeah. And then there's the immersiveness,
Hmm.
and this is really cool because like if you're going to recommend this device to Joe Smo,
Hmm.
does that say is it Schmo or Schmo?
Schmo.
Anyway,
Yeah,
Schmo, yeah,
Mr. Schmo to you.
Mr. Schmo to me, right? But this would be the reason why you would recommend it, in my opinion,
Yeah.
as for content consumption, for 3D movies, for Apple's
Mhm.
immersive environment, sort of like the dinosaur
Yeah.
video. There's one of a lady doing like she's a high wire tightrope
It's
walker or
insane.
something. It's
My
scary.
mom had to take off the headset. I let my mom
Yeah.
try it, and her palms got sweaty. She started freaking out a little bit, and she's like, "I can't do this." That's how realistic it is. The immersiveness
Yeah.
is that is what is really set. Now again, I don't have much experience with AR VR in general, right? But that is the immersiveness. Even when there's specific content that does make it extremely immersive, like that Apple TV content that you were mentioning. But even things just like a regular Apple TV show or something in Disney Plus, the fact that you're able to then watch it from the top of a mountain or watch it, in Joshua Tree, and then even with Disney Plus being able to watch a Marvel movie from like Stark Tower, even those little things, it's just so immersive where this is a movie theater, not in your pocket, but on your face at all times, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
And to be honest, as as impressive as these are, like if you've used any of the higher end VR headsets, like you kind of know what to expect. Like
Hmm.
I wasn't blown away because I've seen kind of this stuff before. Like I had a PlayStation VR headset, and
Okay.
that's far from this, but you have an idea of what you're getting into with that. Like
Yeah.
if you're coming new, you've never used VR before, your mind is going to be, it's just going to explode, right? Because
Yeah.
this is going to be just so insane. But if you've used VR before, one of the higher end versions, then it's still really cool, still better than anything else. But it's like it kind of tempers your excitement just a little bit. So those are the top 5 things we like.
Mm-hmm.
What about things that you've changed your mind on, good or bad, since you've gotten the Vision Pro? Is there anything that stands out?
There's a couple things for sure. So one of the things has to be battery life. I was expecting battery life to be atrocious, the way that Apple sold it. Right? They said 2.5 hours. I think was the final statement they said if you're watching a movie. Now I haven't sat there and watched a movie for 2.5 hours, but I've gotten more than 2.5 hours of just usage overall. Like I said on Friday, I had it on for like 4 hours straight, no issues with battery life, and I was moving around. I had some YouTube playing, or like I said, I had my NBA game time playing, but I was just kind of walking around the house. I had multiple windows open. I felt like I was pushing it a decent amount from a power standpoint, and I didn't run out of battery. And then I just plugged it in overnight, and I was good. So battery to me was a net positive in terms of they set my expectations very low for it, and they're honestly a little bit better than expected.
I agree. Yeah, the
Yeah.
battery. I thought that was going to be one of the most annoying things about this device. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the least. It's
Yeah.
like yeah, it does run out eventually. Like I've had it actually die on me
Okay.
when I've been using it, but it was after like 3 hours or something like that, and
Yeah.
it's like you're not going to really want to wear this, in my opinion, more than that anyway.
Yeah.
And then you have the ability to plug in to like a power bank or whatever the case. So I don't
Yeah.
think it's a big deal. The most annoying thing about the battery is the cable. Like
Yeah.
I've
You're just
dropped that
always tethered.
battery. Yeah, I'm surprised my battery. Let me just grab it.
What we got?
I'm surprised this thing is like still like
Undinged.
does yeah, like because I've dropped this. Oh, I think there might be no. Yeah, still looks good as new, but I've dropped this thing probably 5 or 6 times just because like I forgot it was sitting on the table or
Yeah.
it
And you'll
wasn't
get
secure
up.
in my pocket. And yeah, I get up and it's just a bam. And this thing isn't light. Like when you
It's kind of
drop it,
hefty. Yeah.
yeah, it's hefty. So that's like that cable is annoying. Like and sometimes it gets
Mm-hmm.
twisted and it's just like
Yeah.
yeah, that's the worst part of it.
I mean, the battery life being better than expected does help with this situation, but the fact that the moment it's unplugged, it turns off, like it's fully powered off. So it does stink that maybe if you are in a situation where you're on a 6 hour flight, you need to bring two batteries. You're gonna need to unplug and reboot. Basically, there's no way around it right now. There's no built-in battery in this thing.
Yeah, either that or bring a battery pack. One of the two.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
but
But then speaking of dropping things, man. Speaking of dropping things, today was the first time I dropped my Vision Pro. Unfortunately, knock on wood,
what?
nothing happened. It survived. But I did the opposite thing. I had the battery in my pocket, and I got up from my desk. The Vision Pro was still on my desk, and then the Vision Pro fell off my desk. Now I still
Like,
had the little cover on it, you know, so it still had that on, and I have carpet in my office.
okay, all
Yeah,
right.
thankfully, so no nicks or scratches or anything. But it scared me there for a second.
How did you do that? So the battery was in your pocket and you got up and
I just like
like
got up and moved, and then the battery just pulled because it was still connected. So it was still connected, and this is a pretty strong connection. You know,
oh yeah,
like
like it's
it's
not
locked in.
it's locked
This
in.
thing isn't
Yeah,
gonna fall off. Yeah. So it just dragged it right off my desk, and it hit the floor, and I was like, oh no. If you've had
that's
that moment
like
where you drop your iPhone, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But imagine it
yeah,
3 times more expensive
yeah,
and no
literally.
Apple Care. So that's what we got to get into. That's something that changed my mind immediately. I think right after this, I'm probably gonna hop online and get the Apple Care.
Well, so I have a kind of a mixed feeling about this. Like of any device in a history of Apple computer that needed MagSafe,
Right?
like
What a
I
perfect
understand.
opportunity missed.
Yeah, I get it. I get why you would want to have this locked in, and there's arguments for that. Like,
Hmm.
because if it's MagSafe, I mean, sometimes I don't really use MagSafe anyway for the
Me either.
Mac anymore because it's
It's
like it's just
it's still
inconvenient.
rolled
Like,
up. Yeah.
Yeah, you have this like dedicated cable for this one thing.
Hmm.
But with that being said, it's like they could have had like a super strong magnet, right?
Yeah,
Like a stronger magnet, not something that locks in. Like I get why you want to have this locked in on your computer, because if this is your computer, the last thing you want to
yeah,
do is have it unplugged. But most of the time we're working on stuff, if we're on the internet, it's saved anyway. I don't know.
yeah.
But anyway, like I just feel like this should have been like a newer version of MagSafe somehow, so that could have prevented hopefully the issue, or maybe it wouldn't have. Maybe the magnet would have been so strong it would have pulled it off anyway. So
I get it. I get it because you don't want it to like need to reboot. But also, like you said, this thing is all done on iCloud. Like everything is in the cloud. There's nothing that I have. I think maybe some photos, but even that's in like iCloud photos or whatever. So there's nothing that's I would lose data on. I don't think so. There's definitely missed opportunity for that one.
I don't know. It's
Hmm.
I mean I get both approaches, right? But it's
Yeah,
just kind of it's just funny. Like it's not even like I'm mad about it. It's just kind of like of all things you would think this would be
the perfect.
anyway.
Yeah,
But Apple
but
Care, like you said, is needed. Like that's something I've changed my mind about. I will get Apple Care if I have a
hmm,
Vision Pro. I'm going to get Apple Care. At
yeah,
first, I was like, "No, I don't need this."
but
But
get it.
once you get this in your hand, and once you like for the fifth time pick it up wrong by the light seal and almost drop it,
Hmm.
and you're like, yeah. I mean, obviously, don't pick it up by the light seal. That's stupid. They tell you
Yeah,
explicitly not to do that. But sometimes you just kind of like forget, and it's like kind of hard to know where to lift this thing, because it's like
yeah,
you have this big screen here, and you don't want to touch it because it gets filthy.
yeah.
But
You don't
then
want
it's just
that.
like, yeah, it's just weird.
They told us to put the thumb underneath the nose and then four fingers on top, so then you could just kind of do one of these, which kind
Okay,
of makes. But then, like, who's gonna remember to do that every single time? You know.
yeah,
So, so get Apple Care if you're gonna get this thing. If not, it's gonna cost you like $2,500 to replace or fix. Just
yeah.
we told you here first. But then, what are some other things that kind of changed your mind? I know that personas and FaceTime was a big one for me. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I and all the pictures I saw of personas and all the reviews I've read and all the videos for that matter, I thought
Mm-hmm.
it looked like trash. I'm not gonna even lie to
Yeah,
you. Like I
it
just thought
definitely
it
looked
looked
weird.
like, what is this? Why would they, like, who was gonna want to use this? This looks
Like I
terrible.
almost wanted the cartoony metaversey more. It's either like make
Yeah.
it fake or make it real. Don't give me this weird in between.
Give me my Memoji. Like what
Yeah.
but I was quickly changed my tune as soon as I got in a FaceTime call and
Hmm.
actually use that and saw. You need to see this thing in motion. You need to see the 3D-ness of it, like the
Yeah.
depth of the avatar of the persona to really get it, because the 2D does not do it justice at all.
Yeah.
Like period.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely a little funky looking, but you get used to it very quickly. And like you said, every little tiny micro motion is tracked. It's crazy. Like a little eyebrow raise, a blink. If you move your nose, you stick your tongue out, and somehow it knows what your tongue looks like. Yeah, a smile, if a frown. Like it could easily. It's reading exactly what you're doing, and it works seamlessly. So it makes it feel like, even though visually in a 2D space it doesn't look super real, once you see it moving and you in that 3D space, that's what makes it feel a lot more real than when it really is, I think.
For sure. That and coupled with the spatial audio, like the audio
Hmm.
in the FaceTime call, and you can use personas in other things like Zoom or other. It's an API. They
Yeah.
have an API for it, but like that is what changed my mind on that. Seeing the persona, using them, interacting with four individuals in a FaceTime call, having the spatial audio, and seeing this all these, like you said, micro movements of your face.
Hmm.
Because when you're scanning, like they actually scan your face. You hold it up like that. They go through this whole
Yeah.
thing where you're scanning. They tell you to smile and raise your eyebrows, close your eyes, all that. So it's able to really dial in and get exactly like every little expression you make and paint that picture in this 3D sort of weird looking avatar. With the beta update, I feel like it's a lot better now. So I
Yeah,
gotta
that's what
have
you were
to.
saying.
I'm gonna roll that out here soon. But
Nice. Okay. And then what are some other things that kind of change your mind a little bit about this thing?
pass through. That was one of the things
Mm,
that was hyped up so much in all these reviews.
yeah.
Like it's the like the
It's
coolest
realistic.
feature,
Yeah.
man,
Nah, it ain't it. It's not there yet. It's not
at
there yet.
all, at all.
Even in like a beautifully, even if when it's like perfectly lit outside or inside, it's still a little grainy. It still feels like a 720p almost game engine sort of. It feels like a PlayStation 3 or something that you're
Yeah,
playing in.
Exactly. Perfect description.
Hmm.
And it's like the colors are not good. Like
Yeah.
everything just feels a little bit muted, and there's
Hmm.
not a screen door effect per se, but it is a little grainy. And if
Yeah.
your light is bad,
The
yeah,
noise is
forget it.
unreal.
And if you're in a super bright area where there's lots of dynamic range, that can look weird too. I
Hmm.
find like it just
Yeah.
depends on your environment a lot, but it's just not like I understand why you would want that. It's probably the best iteration of pass through of any device that we've seen thus far, but it still has a long way to go, in my opinion.
No, yeah. I mean, and that's not to say that it's not like it's very confident
Oh yeah,
inducing
for
in
sure.
terms of like seeing
Yeah,
what you're doing and your hand
yeah.
motions. Like I told you the other day, I was unloading my dishwasher and I pulled out like a knife in my dishwasher and I had no in the middle of it I stopped and think like, wow, I'm not really looking at this knife. I'm looking at cameras or at the camera feed of what it's showing me. So it's like it was a very trippy moment, but very confidently grabbed it out of there, stuck it inside of my drawer, and then kept or metal, not metal, glass plates and stuff like that. So it's very confident when you're using your hands and there's no lag. I think it's like 12 milliseconds of latency, which is nothing. So from that standpoint, it's awesome. It's just the actual video feed that you're getting to your eyeballs, which sounds like I'm in a Black Mirror episode right now talking to you about that. The feed that you're getting to your eyeballs is good. I mean, it's not that great from a quality perspective.
Yeah, man, you just kind of made me think of like, what if someone hacked this device and they made it look like you were picking up
A
a
duck or something
spoon?
like yeah,
Yeah, and it's actually like this sharp knife. Like, it's kind of
yeah.
weird.
And gets you
Anyway,
thinking a little bit. Yeah.
I
Oh man.
don't know if that
But
says
then
more about my brain or anyway.
yeah,
Let's
once you
move
get
on.
deep into your thoughts, it's game over. Yeah. And then the last thing that I did want to bring up in terms of what changed our mind on another meh note is productivity. I mean, we've been talking about this back and forth in terms of how again this thing is magical. It's unbelievable what you can do with it. It feels like you're, you know, in the future, but at the end of the day, we're still trying to figure out where this fits. This is a $4,000 computer on your face, and it can't really do everything that your Mac computer can do. It can do more than what your iPhone can do. It's giving me a lot of sentiment and similarities to what we thought iPad OS was like and where the iPad was going to fit. Right now, there isn't really much you can do from a productivity standpoint besides getting a virtual display of your Mac desktop, and only one for that matter. You can't have multiple. So there's still a lot of things that need to be answered and a lot more that needs to be pushed forward for the productivity side to kind of catch up to all the fun content side.
I agree. There's no real IO. Like, okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I got this I guess you call it the Apple Vision Pro developer strap,
Mm-hmm.
and
Tell
it's
them how much you
this
spent for
little
that one again.
this is $300, and that's not including the $99 yearly fee for the developer account that you need to
Crazy.
even have the privilege of purchasing this, which I get
Unreal.
because Apple probably doesn't want the average person buying this unless you're really a developer, because
Yeah.
it really doesn't do much unless you're a developer. Like, it does do one cool thing that I
Mm-hmm.
think is going to make a lot of people want this, and that's the ability to downgrade and upgrade firmware via your Mac.
Okay.
So you can
Nice.
actually downgrade the beta to back to the stable version, or upgrade to the beta in a more efficient way,
Yeah.
using a IPSW. But you can't connect drives to this thing. You can't connect Ethernet adapters to it. You can't connect anything but a USB cable to your Mac. And that enables, like I said, downgrades. It enables you to deploy apps via Xcode. It's just like this developer strap is not something that is consumer friendly at all.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about it is that it shows that this device is more modular than just taking off these guys, right?
Yeah.
You can actually remove this and replace it with another yet to be named future device that does allow for consumer friendly data pass through. So anyway,
Yeah, I can see that kind of evolving into a little ecosystem of products and accessories in the future. Once Apple, like very similar to how they do their MFI MagSafe, like you can get a license as a third party company to get that type of strap, and then build an accessory kind of ecosystem around it, which I can see happening.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I view it like that, and sort of like the Mac Pro in one, like, because the Mac Pro
Mm-hmm.
has their accessories that you have to go through a whole bunch of links just to find where to buy it. And it's not like most people aren't going to want that, but for the those that
Yeah.
do, like, it's just like a combination of that sort of thing. So I don't know. It's a weird
Yeah.
device, a weird little accessory, but I'm glad to have it for those downgrades. So
Nice. No, yeah, because it's true. Because if I wanted to downgrade, you can't, right?
Nope,
I have to take
not
it to
unless you have
Apple.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
at
which is
least
wild.
unless they come up with some way to do that wirelessly, maybe they will. But for
Yeah.
now, this is the only way.
Well, I mean, that now brings us to, what we think needs improvement, or pretty
The
much, yeah,
worst
what we think,
features.
yeah, the worst features. And I mean, the number one thing has to be price, man. For what it is. I mean, again, for what it is, maybe it is worth it in terms of R&D and the hardware and like what it can do from a wow factor. I mean, everybody saw it on social media over the last 48, 72 hours, just how cool this thing is. But again, once the honeymoon period ends, you kind of start to think to yourself, what is this thing going to fully be for? What am I going to use this for? How am I going to, I guess, get my 4,000 or get $4,000 worth of, value out of this thing? And it's just tough to recommend at that price point to the average person. So Apple just needs to kind of bring that price down, which they eventually will. I think it's just for right now that is something that really needs to be improved.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's technically 3,500, but at the end of the day, you're paying close to 4 grand, right? Like,
Yeah,
because
I
after
think mine was like
taxes and everything.
38.50 for the baseline model with taxes and stuff. I did get mine in New
Yeah,
York, which is like the highest tax city in the world, but yeah,
yeah,
38.50 for this thing for the baseline one with no
yeah.
accessories, nothing. You know,
But
so
with that being said, I mean, there is a lot of technology. If you looked at the iFixit teardown, it's insane what they've able to put in here. Like
yeah,
this is a full on Mac, like MacBook Air uses the same
hmm
chip as this.
yeah,
Like it's a full on Mac computer in this. Not just that though, you got all these other things. You got two 4K screens, or not
yeah,
technically 4K, but more pixels than 4K on each
yeah,
display. You got all sorts of other cameras and sensors. I mean, it's just
hmm
packed to the gills with technology. I think Apple is not making a huge profit off these.
And then you also have to keep in mind that this thing has to stay cool. If this thing starts getting hot, it's on your face. People are going to complain, and people are going to start sweating and stuff. So like Apple needed to not only kind of design this perfectly for a power standpoint, but also from a you know ventilation and making sure that it stays cool in your face standpoint. Like that's a lot of engineering and R&D that needed to go into that, right?
Yeah,
Unbelievable. And you do
yeah,
see, I haven't felt it get hot. I mean, you said you did, but during the developer process.
mhm.
But for me, it hasn't gotten warm. It really hasn't, which is amazing. And I haven't really heard the fans kick in either, because it does have a pull through on the bottom and then the exhaust on the top. I haven't really heard that thing go off or anything like that. So I think for it's been engineered as well as it could be.
Yeah. You mentioned R&D. That's got to be a
Mm-hmm.
huge swath. Not just to mention the productivity, like the production of the hardware
Yeah,
itself, but think about all the R&D effort that went into this in dollars. It's got to be a ton. I mean, it's insane
yeah,
looking at this teardown. So
mm-hmm.
yeah, price, it is a downside. It's one of the worst things about it, but I don't feel like your typical person is going to want to go out and want to buy one of these. This is sort of like stage or phase one of
Yeah.
this development cycle. Just like the iPhone, like when that first came out, people thought that was crazy expensive, and
It
it
was. I
was for
mean,
the time,
for a
right?
phone, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember you can get a BlackBerry for $100 for like fully subsidized through your carrier, and the same fully subsidized iPhone was like $600, which was absurd
yeah.
back then. But what else do you think kind of needs improvement on this thing right now?
I don't know if it needs improvement or just needs to be trashed, but the the virtual keyboard is terrible.
Oh
Like
man,
it's like literally one of the things that make me want to tear my hair out about this device because yes, you can interact with it. Like, all right, so first of all,
let's talk about the input methods. If you need
yeah,
to type,
the input
if you need
methods
to,
is
yeah.
like you look at each letter and you do that.
Okay, that's probably
Right?
the worst version of it. But yeah, you can do that.
That's that's bad. And
Yeah.
then you can also do this,
Uh huh.
but you can't do this. It
It
has
gets
to
confused. You can't
be
use you can't use multiple fingers. It gets
so
confused.
yeah, so that throws you off there. It's like you can only like we're not used to like it's been since like first grade since I was doing
Mm-hmm.
that. So yeah, that's hard to get used to. And then I don't know if you found this, but I find it just deleting stuff just at random.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is so
It's
infuriating.
no, yeah. Writing text with this thing is pretty tough. It's kind of annoying. And then even and then the other form is dictation, I guess, if you want to use
Mhm.
dictation, which is hit or miss depending on Siri, because that's just a Siri feature. It's nothing really proprietary to Vision OS. And that one's like it's okay, it's kind of accurate, but I remember I tweeted something the other day and it was like kind of a paragraph long, and the amount of typos that it had in there was crazy. And I thought I was enunciating pretty decently. So Dictation is that third form of input. Now you can connect a Bluetooth keyboard if you want to, but then you're stuck at a desk again, and that kind of kills the versatility and mobility of it all. But those are your by default those three real methods of input straight out of the box.
One of the cool things though I do like is the fact that you can look at an input and then dictation will start automatically. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Dictation is good for like quick things. Like if you just want to go to espn.com or, 9to5mac.com, it'll get you there. But
Yeah,
if you're like writing an essay or something like that, or, writing an article, you gotta connect a Bluetooth keyboard for it to be the most efficient for sure.
for
So
sure.
Apple, I don't know how you fix it virtually. Cause I mean, I guess they're doing the best they can. Cause like, how would you fix it virtually? I don't know for a virtual keyboard. Um, but that's what it is. Maybe, I think, did you mention this to me the other day? Where imagine if they were able to sync up the Apple Watch to the actual virtual keyboard to get some real life like haptics. Cause
Haptics,
you get,
yeah. I think
there's visual
yeah,
haptics that you see, but
yeah. I think
sync it with
that's
your Apple Watch.
I think that's definitely on the if nothing else for an accessibility option. Like I think
Yeah.
that's just a no-brainer. Like you have this
Hmm.
thing on your wrist, use the
With great
haptics.
haptics already,
Yeah, exactly.
fantastic.
Like I'm going to double up. I'm going to have two Apple Watches on both. So another thing that's kind of annoying is, and this is kind of digressing a little bit, like, so with the virtual keyboard and just Windows in general, I notice sometimes I just accidentally, as I mentioned earlier, there's just stuff just moves around. I wish there was
Hmm.
an option to lock stuff, like to
Yeah.
lock windows. Like we should be able to lock a window and make it lock so nothing you do will touch it, right? Like there's no
Yeah.
input, you can't move it, you can't drag it, you just lock it into place. That's something I think definitely has to be on the horizon, I would think.
For sure.
Um,
Like add a little button next to the control bar on the bottom, like a little lock button. Leave it on there. I think that
yeah.
could definitely be done.
Yeah, and I've had my
So,
keyboard. The reason why I brought that up is because the keyboard is like it's like hopping around. I'm like, what?
yeah.
What's going on there? So anyway, that would be
So,
nice. Another issue is comfort and weight. Not you
hmm,
said you were pretty comfortable wearing it for long periods of
I'm kind
time.
of okay with it. People have said that if you want to get comfortable in some long sessions, you use the dual loop band or the dual band, I believe it is, one that has the part on top. I haven't used that once. I've been using the solo nip band, and as long as I get a good fit, every now and then I got to readjust it. But as long as I keep it kind of on the top part of my back of my head, it's relatively comfortable. Like I'm okay with it. It's definitely like it's a little heavy, sure. It's like the same weight as an iPad 12.9-inch iPad. So it's not light, but I think that's another reason why Apple decided to do the tethered battery. Because imagine if they had the battery pack
Oh
also on the
man,
head on the headpiece.
yeah, that would be
Yeah,
that would be a non-starter for a lot of people.
yeah,
I'm still kind of like it's not super uncomfortable. Like I
hmm,
can easily go an hour, 2 hours with this thing on. Um, but I find that like their pressure on like my cheek
yeah, on
under
the
on my
cheeks.
cheeks and then
Hmm.
on the head area is just annoying. And another thing is like taking this off and putting it on, just you have to adjust it each time. And it's
Yeah.
like that just gets kind of annoying sometimes. So it's not a
So
huge
comfort is,
deal.
yeah, it could be improved. It could be
Yeah,
made
it can.
lighter. It could be the headband could maybe be a little bit like the actual footprint, maybe a little bit bigger to make it easier to kind of sit on the back of your head. So that's something that definitely needs to be improved for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then another big one.
Yeah, this is where we get a little, you know, because as magical as this thing is, at the end of the day, you're the only one using it. You can't share it with anybody. Even have you put it in guest mode a lot? Like I've been putting it in guest mode, and yes, people can kind of get a decent experience, but it's not great for them. No, yeah, I've let my brother use it, my wife, my dad, my mom, because they all want to see what it's like. And then the guest mode's just a little weird, and it is a very isolating experience at the end of the day. But that's just what AR VR is. Whether it is the Apple version or the Meta version, it's just you're putting on something that's putting something between you and somebody else at all times, and that person doesn't know that you have 20 windows open around their face when you're talking to them. And the eyesight pass through is still really weird. It makes you look like an alien. So it's just an isolating product, unfortunately.
Yeah, I get where Apple was coming from with the eyesight thing. I think it was a like if I was an executive at Apple, that would have been on the top of my list as well because
Yeah.
that is one of the biggest negatives about these headsets. It's like
Hmm.
you're basically, I mean, you feel like a jerk, kind of like
Yeah, you
honestly,
do.
like, and I'm, it's like the person that you're talking to and they're just like this on their phone, except 10 times worse.
but way worse.
They don't even want to see your face now. I don't want to see you. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how it feels like when, yeah, even if you can see through, they can't see you. And it just puts up a barrier of isolation in so many different ways.
Yeah. And it's just a tough I mean, I don't really know how to describe it. It's just you either want to use it all the time or you don't, or you want to be isolated. I mean, if I was living alone by myself, and I wasn't married or whatever, I would probably use this a lot after work. I'd put it on, I'd watch Sports Center, I'd use it while I'm cooking. But now with people around me all the time, and we're social people, I'm not going to just like have it on, while I'm doing random stuff around the house. It's just not how I'm going to be using it. So teach their own. Everybody do what you got to do, and make justify that $4,000 purchase however you want to. But that's just kind of like how I've been feeling about it.
Oh, I feel the same way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and on one hand, you can say, well, I'm working in my office, I'm doing my work anyway.
Yeah,
So,
I'm playing NBA 2K for work. Just
yeah,
testing out how
it's
to
like,
game.
but number one, like, it's not a great productivity device right now. If it was an
Yeah,
amazing productivity device that made me 10 times more productive, then I could easily justify, well, yeah, I'm going to isolate myself because number one, I'm going to be done with what I need to do quicker. And then I
yeah,
can get back to being in the real world. Right.
yeah,
But that's not yet the case with this thing yet. Right. It's not
yeah,
a great productivity device right now. So not only are you doing things slower potentially if you were trying to use this as a productivity device, so now you're doing it slower and you're isolating yourself longer, right?
mm-hmm.
So it's the isolation part of it is probably the biggest downside to me. Um,
Yeah.
just because, like, I don't want to be that guy that's like just all to myself. It just, if you're not around people, like if you're just doing it for work, yeah, I get it.
And there's share play, and you can airplay what you're seeing to your TV and things like that, but it's still not the same. You know, it's still just it really isn't. So I don't know what you can do to get around that because it's just by nature it is an isolating device. It's either
Well,
we get used to it or you make the device smaller and take the Google Glass approach. But how long before we get to that form factor?
I think that's the
So.
problem. Like, I think that's number one. That's the reason why they put so much effort in a pass through, and number two is
Mm-hmm.
why they put so much effort in the eyesight, even though that did turn out so well. Actually, I think they would have been better off just eliminating that, and because
Yeah.
like I've had comments of like you look scary, like you.
Right.
I mean, maybe people think I already look scary, but I don't need to look scarier, right? Like it's yeah, that's weird. But I see the reason, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they obviously are aware. I don't know how you solve it besides getting real AR because this isn't a real AR device. So
Yeah.
until real AR arrives,
This is what we're stuck with. And then the final thing, I mean, the final thing that we wanted to talk about was that productivity side because I made a video this week about like the 7 best things to do on the Vision Pro. One of them was a productivity like action. The other was all content consumption and gaming and things like that. So the only thing that you can do right now from a productivity standpoint is just have an extended display for your Mac computer. It doesn't work with the iPad, it doesn't work with your iPhone. It works with just your Mac. And even if you have an M3 Max chip, it still is only one display. I was limited to one display because I have a regular M2 MacBook Air, but no matter what MacBook you have, you're limited to one display. So there's a lot of improvement I think that could be done there, in my opinion.
for sure. Now, arguably, I mean, like you could still be productive with just the Vision OS apps or the iPad compatible apps. Like it
Mm-hmm.
depends on what your definition of productivity. It does your productivity
Yeah,
mean you have to have a Mac? Like, yeah, because it's kind of
yeah.
weird hearing you say that as an iPad guy. Like, because technically, this is the perfect productivity device for you, right?
I guess yeah. I did play with LumaFusion a little bit, and it works. I mean, if you connect a trackpad and your keyboard, and I could just have LumaFusion running natively on Vision OS, and I'm just doing my thing. As long as I can have a strong internet connection, rely on iCloud. Because another thing, as video editors, like we have huge file sizes, you know. So getting that over to the Vision Pro is a whole other can of worms that we were talking about. But technically, you could. Just like I've always told people, if you want to use your iPad, there's a different way to get from point A to point B, but you can get to point B eventually. It's just how you're going to get there. And I think that's what people got to do with the Vision OS and Vision Pro.
So, besides the isolating thing, just throw it out the window. What is it about the Vision Pro that's not? Why do you not consider this to be a productivity device? As an iPad user that uses,
Mm-hmm.
iPad for 99% of your work, what is it
Yeah.
about it that makes you feel like it's not a productivity device?
So the way that I use my iPad is very touch heavy, and I use my Apple Pencil a lot as well, especially when I'm making thumbnails and Affinity Photo and things like that. So, and I guess the reason I went to the iPad is just because I've kind of forced myself to use the iPad over the Mac computer because the iPad was just a more fun and versatile device, right? I guess again there's I'm gonna make a video about this of how similar the experience is for me personally because aside from video editing and thumbnail editing, the iPad is a consumption device for me. So Vision Pro has a lot of similarities in that aspect where I can get some productivity stuff done, but at the end of the day, it's a content consumption machine. So, and you said to throw out the isolation factor, but that's the number one thing for me. I
Yeah.
can't throw that away, right? Just being even when I'm in the office by myself, I feel less isolated because I'm already by myself, but it still feels a little bit like I'm disconnected from what I want to be fully doing, if that makes any sense. So again, for me, the Vision Pro right now is just an expensive, fun device that's very cool and has some amazing technology. So I think it's worth it from a technology standpoint. It's just, is it worth it from, an everyday kind of toy standpoint? Like I've never bought myself just a $4,000 toy. You know what I
No,
mean?
you and me both.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I stand right now.
Yeah. So with that being said, all these things culminated, the 5 best things, 5 things that changed our mind, the 5 worst things. Are you keeping the Vision Pro?
I'm gonna go ahead and say more than likely not. More than likely not. I'm gonna take this week to really kind of force myself, like you said, to kind of get productive with it and see if I can. But it's a $4,000 toy for me right now. Very cool one at that, but it's a toy nonetheless. And there's other ways to. I've told people you can buy an iPhone 15 Pro, an iPad Pro with a Magic Keyboard, and a MacBook Air for that price, which is crazy. That's a whole ecosystem right there. Probably have some room in there for an Apple Watch SE too.
And a
So
Starbucks latte.
yep, a little caffeine boost. What about you? What are you thinking? You keeping this thing?
I would say probably just from the standpoint of like coverage, like for work. I mean,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
mainly because I do like what I do for work. I like
Mm-hmm.
teaching, I like filming, doing videos and explaining things, and just technology is just fun to play with. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like I feel like my verdict is still pending. Like I still need a little bit more
Yeah,
time with this. And this week, as I finish this review, which is coming, I think I'll have a
which I'm
bit
excited for.
more concrete answer. But right now, I'm leaning towards yes, I'm keeping it.
Okay, which makes sense.